Friends, I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started over here. What's going on? Are the tubes connecting themselves? I think they are. That's tremendous. That means we can go ahead and get started, so let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today we are talking about secrets. We've got some questions about Joe Biden and some documents that are hiding over at the FBI offices. And so we, of course, are going to get into that. The big story of the day was about this subpoena that came out from Chuck Grassley and James Comer. A letter went to the FBI and the Department of Justice, and they're saying, we know that you've got your hands on a document. We want the document because we think it implicates Joe Biden. So the subpoena went out. We will take a look at that. We'll also listen to Chuck Grassley explain a little bit more about what this involves. Very interesting story, and it's a pretty big slug, right? If you're going to make a move, sending a subpoena to the FBI from Congress, and from both houses of Congress, mind you, from the Senate and from the House of Representatives, kind of a big move. We're also going to do a quick check-in with the Proud Boys trial. They had an early release today, half day kind of at school, and didn't get much activity from them. There was a little bit of an update. They sent in one jury note, so we'll take a quick look at that. And then, of course, at the very end of the show, which we'll get to quickly, is going to be Trump trial. Day 6. E. Jean Carroll suing Donald Trump for the thing. And if you want to follow along at home and actually access this mind map, you can do so at spotlightlawyer.com/Trump. That will bring you to a page that looks like this. All the different Trump prosecutions are on here. And you can see we are moving right along. We wrapped up with day 4, day 5 yesterday. We started yesterday, or ended yesterday, with Dr. Leslie Leibowitz, a clinical psychologist, somebody who works on trauma. And so we're going to start the day back up with her, the trauma specialist testifying as an expert witness in the trial. We're also going to hear from E. Jean Carroll's sister. Her name is Cande, with an E, not with a Y. And then we'll hear from Natasha Stoynoff, who is a journalist who I thought I had another clip from. All right, I'll see if I can dig that up while something else is going on. So we've got that all today. Of course, Trump trial, day 6. We're going to check in with Matthew Russell Lee over at Inner City Press, who is there on scene. And you really should sign up to his Substack. I did, over at Matthew Russell Lee ICP, standing for innercitypress.substack.com, because we're going to be going to his live thread today. And he's there. He's on scene. He's got more meat to put on the bones than we get to here. So we'll get to all of that and more, my friends. And as I said, if you want to follow along and navigate this at home or take a look at these documents, I have them all attached as transcripts and exhibits. And so you can access all of this at spotlightlawyer.com/Trump. It'll just bring you right over here. Best to browse it on a PC, on a computer, not on your phone. But if you want to follow along, you can. Check that out. But we do have a lot to get to. And of course, if you want to join the show and be a part of the program, the best way to do that is by going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can see the address right there. We have an amazing community. We have a little bit more, intimate, maybe is the word, chats and headlines shows in the morning, and where we have a little smaller group, but we talk about some of the news on the day. A lot of the time it informs what we're doing here. If you want to come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to do it. You can also join up on YouTube, and I want to give a shout out to our friend, we got Dolphin Fan, brought in 5 new members on YouTube. Thank you very much, Dolphin Fan. Inviting Isa, Don, Curon, Code, and Paul all came in courtesy of Dolphin Fan. And Dolphin Fan, thank you so much for bringing in new members. And new members on YouTube, don't forget to get the Telegram link. It's in the community post section, so you can join us for the after party, which is where we debrief the show. After the show's over, we like to join an after party. So come and join us, and thank you, Dolphin Fan. I also want to welcome Luxury Homes, became a supporter. And shout out to Luxury Homes for joining us. We're glad that you're with us. And so hopefully we see you all tomorrow in the morning, when we have our shows, our intimate shows. It's very intimate, yeah. We also want to shout out our friends over at fieldofgreens.com. You know, we've got a lot of business to attend to here, and sometimes it can be a little bit taxing on the body, you know what I mean? But we all need to be nutrified and fortified courtesy of Field of Greens, and we all, you know, can afford to lose some of those extra leftover pandemic pounds, I know. But how sick are you of all the weight loss pills and fad diet ads all over the place? We've all seen them. We've all been there. We've all tried them. They don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy every day, 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. You do that, the weight probably falls off. You just start feeling better. But look, vegetables and fruit, not a fan. Takes a lot of time to prepare every day. You don't have to worry about that. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens, which is a science-backed formula of very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product, because proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look healthier and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Very easy, fieldofgreens.com. Remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. You're doing them a favor too. That's why they pop out of the ground so happy. Use code Robert at checkout so you can save. And if you don't want the green stuff, there's a lot of other good stuff. There's lean products, there's joint products, there's sleep products, calming things down, very useful. And you can check it all out, fieldofgreens.com, code Robert. All right. And so let's get into the program on the day. We've got some business to attend to. Proud Boys trial. Deliberation continues, and we have a short update, not a lot of activity. Remember, we've had several different jury notes, and we get a new one. Jury note 8 comes in after a very short day. You see the docket has a brief update for us. Minute entry proceedings were held. Everybody was there. Nothing happened. Same panel of jurors, and they were released. Quick question came in. Not much here. You see, they wrote on the form, hello, note from the jury. We have noticed a typo on our verdict form. A typo on your verdict form. They say on page 4, letter B should state count 4. It currently says count 1. Can you please send us an updated version? Thank you. So that is not ideal. And there was a little bit of an argument over this in court today, but essentially the judge returned it and just corrected the typographical error that you identified on the verdict form. And that's it. He wrote, the attached page corrects the typographical error that you identified on the verdict form. Enjoy. Sent in May 3rd, 9:11 a.m. So you can understand that maybe the court clerk or whoever is helping the judge with this, the law student, you know, who's back there, the intern who's clerking for the judge, is getting a little concerned that judge maybe, you know, had a conversation with him about that. So that's it. The jury is still there. Now, something you can glean, of course, out of this is this jury is really attentive to details. Holy moly. So they have called out a typo and sent it back to the judge. The judge said, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Somebody's fired. But yeah, we'll correct it and we'll send it back in. So are they getting close to the end? Are they now going through each verdict form? Are they, you know, does that mean they got through the other ones? They're like, all right, that one's done. Next, that one's done. Next, that one's done. Now, oh, this one has a typo. Maybe we get a verdict tomorrow. Maybe we get a verdict Friday. Don't know. But that's it from the updates. Not much else there on the Proud Boys trial. And so we'll move right along. Now we've got another big update. This was kind of a bombshell today that came out, and a lot of people will be talking about it, and it is still breaking. But Congress subpoenas the FBI, demanding access to a document they claim implicates President Biden in a criminal scheme. The letter comes from Senator Chuck Grassley, you see on your screen, and Representative James Comer, binding both houses of Congress in their quest to go after the FBI. And they published a press release along with the actual letter and the subpoena that went over to the FBI. We will take a look at all of the documents as well as Chuck Grassley's explanation. But first, let's review the press release that they published jointly together on the congressional website over on the Oversight Committee's subcommittee's address. Published May 3rd, they tell us that Grassley Comer demand on behalf of Congress FBI records alleging a criminal scheme involving the then Vice President Joe Biden out of Washington. Senate Budget Committee ranking member from the Senate and longtime whistleblower advocate Chuck Grassley from Iowa and James Comer from Kentucky are demanding the FBI produce an unclassified record alleging a criminal scheme involving the then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national. Wonder who that could be. Wonder how they got connected. Wonder who helped facilitate that. The document, an FBI-generated FD 1023 form, which, let's see what that is, allegedly details an arrangement involving an exchange of money for policy decisions. And I'm trying to see if we can get an example of what this form looks like. This might be it. So if we take a look, this says FD 302 on the form. Now, this is an old form, 1977, but this gives you the rough idea. The following questions were posed. Investigation was back in the 80s, so this is a very old form, but it is an FBI FD 302 form. So they continue. Actually, that's not the form. We want a 1023, so disregard that entire form I just showed you. That's what happens sometimes. Anyways, the form is FBI generated FD 1023. Hopefully they tell us what this is. Allegedly details an arrangement involving an exchange of money for policy decisions. Comer issued a subpoena today following legally protected disclosures of Grassley's office, saying, "We believe the FBI possesses an unclassified internal document that includes very serious and detailed allegations that implicate the current president of the United States. What we don't know is what, if anything, the FBI has done to verify these claims or to investigate it further. Or did they just throw it in the dumpster? The FBI's recent history of botching politically charged investigations demands congressional oversight." And so Grassley has long raised concerns about this, pointing to all different relationships about Biden and foreign business arrangements. When FBI Director Wray pledged to prevent any retaliation targeting whistleblowers, the FBI and the DOJ have thus far refused to voluntarily provide responsive records or any answers to congressional inquiries. And so therefore, they are investigating the Biden family's suspicious business schemes to determine if the Biden family has been targeted by foreign actors. What do you mean targeted? Almost like they were receiving them, soliciting them through Hunty. If President Biden is compromised and there is a national security threat, the Oversight Committee has obtained thousands of records of financial records relating to the family, resulting in identification of at least one deal where the Biden family and their companies received over $1 million in incremental payments, 15 of them through a Chinese company facilitated by a third party. Holy moly. And we've been hearing about this for a long time. We had a great conversation here on this channel with Garrett Ziegler from MarcoPoloUSA.org. And he has communicated, and we've covered these cases where Hunter would create a LLC or some shell company essentially, and then do business with the Chinese, and then they would split the pot. And then a couple of years later, Hunter's company would exit the deal, and the Chinese company would then take over entire control of the mine. In this case, it was a mine in the Congo. The subpoena requires the FBI to produce in unredacted form all FD 1023s that contain the word Biden and all accompanying attachments and documents. And so I'm still trying to glean what is this form for. what's the purpose of the form? And if you do an image search for that, you get a bunch of car stuff. All right. So that is what came out from the Oversight Committee. Now, I want to go back and hear what Grassley says. Senator Grassley called into Fox News to explain this letter and the subpoena, and here's what he said.
The Iowa senator is joining us now. And Senator, I know you've also just issued a statement on you, as well as your colleague James Comer, demanding the FBI record on alleging this criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden. This congressional subpoena, you say, seeks a specific FBI document. Senator, thank you for jumping on with us. What can you tell us?
Well, I will only add to what you say that this comes from credible and unclassified whistleblower disclosures of this possible criminal activity when Biden was vice president, and we want this information. And there's a subpoena going to be or is issued now, and it really boils down to my traditional oversight of government. Particularly see the executive branches doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. So the Justice Department, the FBI needs to come clean to the American people what they did with the document, because we know the document exists from very credible whistleblower information that we got. We really need to know what steps did the Justice Department and FBI take to investigate and to vet the document to determine if it's accurate or not, and did the Justice Department and the FBI follow normal investigative procedures, or did they let political calculations interfere? You know, and I've documented several times where political interference has kept, I guess, leave it this way. I've had plenty of evidence of political decision-making and who should be investigated or not be investigated. But if the Justice Department and the FBI have any hopes of redeeming their once trusted position with the American people, Garland and Wray must answer this subpoena and tell us what they're doing with this information that we think is very credible based upon what whistleblowers are telling us.
All right, so a quick pause on Grassley. We'll come back to him. But I was able to dig up a little bit more information on that specific form over from CNN. Here's what they tell us. They say that the form in question is an FD 1023 form. It's a document that the FBI uses to memorialize meetings or information gathered from confidential sources. The document typically would include allegations from the source, including information not verified by the FBI. So in other words, they got a document and they didn't act on it. Okay, a whistleblower came to them. It's a source. It's a confidential source. There should be a report on this thing. Theoretically, the whistleblower says, I know there's one of those. And the idea is that this was created. This whistleblower came forward. Somebody was reporting something to the FBI. They said, oh, this is a nice story, neat story. And they just took it and threw it right in the garbage, or shoved it in an inconclusive file, or it's still in open investigations from 5 years ago, whenever it is. But they're saying, we know you have it and we want to see it because the source tells us that you've got it. So that is the subject of the subpoena. They want to get that specific document that would implicate the Biden family because the whistleblower talked about it to the FBI.
Hey, Senator, it's John Roberts here. Bribery scheme with a foreign national accountability for the American people. Well, that really whets our appetite as to exactly what this is all about. Does this have to do with Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings in Ukraine or China, or is it something else?
Well, I guess basically we've got to wait to see what the document exactly says, but I'm convinced that we've got to get this detail, and at this time, the FBI needs to explain whether it's accurate or not. But this is based upon information that we get from what I think are very credible sources within the department.
So let's pause and go take a look at the actual letters that went out, and we'll come back and see what else Grassley has to say. But the letters went out to both Congress and the FBI, drafted May 3rd, 2023, coming out of the Congress of the United States. To the Honorable Merrick Garland. We know him here over at the DOJ, the Attorney General. Also, Christopher Wray from the FBI. The letter signed by Chuck Grassley, who we just listened to, along with James Comer, representative from Kentucky. They say, "Dear Attorney General Garland, we have received legally protected and highly credible unclassified whistleblower disclosures. Based on those disclosures, it has come to our attention that the DOJ, your office, Mayor, and the FBI, your office, Chris, possess an unclassified FD 1023 form that describes an alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions. Your boss. It has been alleged that the document includes a precise description of how the alleged criminal scheme was employed, as well as its purpose." That's a juicy document. Based on the alleged specificity within the document, representatives from both houses of Congress, both the Senate and the House, join hands and they say, "It would appear to us that the DOJ and the FBI have enough information to determine the truth and the accuracy of the information contained within it. However, it remains unclear what steps, if any, were taken to investigate the matter. The significant public interest in assessing the FBI's response to this information, as well as growing concern about the DOJ and the FBI's track record of allowing political bias to infect their decision-making process, necessitate exacting congressional oversight." And we're here to deliver that. The DOJ and the FBI appear to have valuable, verifiable information that you have failed to disclose to the American people. Therefore, Congress will proceed to conduct an independent and objective review of this matter, free from those agencies' influence. Transparency brings accountability. Period. Your friends, Chuck Grassley, Representative James Comer. Also copied Chairman Whitehouse and Raskin over on various committees. So, a pretty powerful statement there. You guys have a document and you're not acting on the document, very likely because the document implicates your administration and you certainly don't want that to come out. However, a whistleblower has come forward, told us it exists, told us that the document contains a lot of details about the specifics about what Biden was doing, and we're demanding now you send that document over to us because we don't trust your agency to police itself. The follow-up letter, which includes the subpoena, goes over to Christopher Wray. Dear Wray, Chris, to assist our committee and our investigation into the matter described in the letter that we just read, attached is a subpoena for the specific documents. The subpoena requires the FBI to produce all specified FD 1023 forms created in the time frame identified in the attached schedule, along with all the accompanying attachments and other documents. The committee, ours, our independent and objective review of this matter will inform various potential legislative solutions. Specifically, if you don't want to cooperate with us because you think we're extending over our jurisdiction or we don't have the authority, he's saying we're Congress. We do have authority to go investigate certain things, one of which is Congress is considering legislation aimed at deficiencies in the current legal framework regarding disclosure of financial interests related to vice presidents, presidents, and family members that might put America at risk. The committee is seeking meaningful reforms to government ethics and disclosure laws and will provide necessary transparency into these assets. Public corruption, influence peddling, federal ethics and financial disclosures are national security measures within congressional oversight authority. We have broad ability to investigate any matter at any time. Same language, they copy and pasted this whole paragraph. So for all the, lefties who, I can't believe they're doing this. This is so outside. They don't have the authority to. This is copy and pasted, essentially, from Liz Cheney's letters. Oh, we're investigating national security, insurrection. That's all they did. So Congress can do it. Now, again, I'm not really a big fan of Congress. Well, I am a big fan of this. Yeah, Congress should cram it right down the FBI's gullet, peacefully, politically, with subpoenas. Thank you for your prompt attention to this important investigation. Sincerely, James Comer, your friend from the Committee on Oversight and Accountability. So, very good stuff being delivered over to the FBI and to the DOJ. And there is more from Grassley. Let's listen.
Okay, so we're just.
Well, isn't it about time after 3 years? And particularly with that gun situation, if you lie to get a gun, that's pretty certain that you should have been prosecuted probably a long time ago.
Senator, also just another little piece of breaking news here, totally unrelated to this. Apparently our affiliate in Atlanta, going back to the shooting, is reporting that a car was ditched at Campbell Middle School in Cobb County. They believe that the suspect in the shooting stole a car and dumped it at the middle school, and then the suspect fled on foot. So it would seem that the search now is being concentrated in Cobb County. What you're talking about right now.
I think I see it as a separate issue, and it's kind of getting that we want to know exactly what role the Secretary of State played, and we want this role to be saved through his emails and any other communication he had with the people that wrote the famous letter, CIA former people, in which they said that this business about Hunter Biden just before the last election was Russian disinformation. Now, we know that's a lie, but he played a role in it. We want to know what that role is.
All right, so that's Chuck Grassley. That is the latest investigation into the Biden crime family. We'll see where that continues to go. Very nice to see Congress taking some action on this one. We were concerned that maybe they would drag their feet and allow the DOJ and the FBI to continue to just cover up for all of the crimes. Maybe not all of them, but Joe Biden is going to be under a lot more scrutiny from Congress. We'll continue to follow this one. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you as the next subpoena rolls. Now, we have to turn our attention over to the Trump trial because it is in day 6. And if you want to follow along at home and navigate the mind map, access the documents, watch the videos. We oftentimes can't get to everything here, so the videos are longer or shorter, longer. Check it out, spotlightlawyer.com/Trump. You'll go over there and you'll see something that looks like this. Now, we are on Day 6 of the Trump trial, continues with more witnesses presented by the plaintiff's team. And we're learning today that Donald Trump and his team are not going to be putting on a defense, which means this is going to be wrapping up very soon. We're not going to have any witnesses from Donald Trump's side. Let's see what happened today. We've got a number of witnesses who testified. We're picking back up with Dr. Leslie Leibowitz. She was the clinical psychologist who testified on day 5. A trauma specialist. We didn't hear much from her. She introduced herself and the day came to a close. But after she testifies, we're also going to hear from E. Jean Carroll's sister. Her name is Cande Carroll, and this is a recent photograph of E. Jean in court. They are still trying to hide her, I think, behind her glasses and her hair. But Cande, her sister, came into court. Cande with an E, not a Y. Her sister testified for some reason, and we're also going to hear from this journalist named Natasha Stoynoff, who I think needed a box of tissues as well when she was testifying in court today. And so we're going to get into all of it, courtesy of our friend Matthew Russell Lee over on Twitter at Inner City Press. And you can go to his Substack at matthewrussellleeicp.substack.com. And when you go over there, you can become a member and get additional information about this case, because he is there on the scene. He is physically present. And so there's a lot that he is tweeting about that we can't quite get. Now, let's get to it. He is over there at Inner City Press on Twitter. And here is how the day starts. We're back. The jury enters. The judge says, all rise. Everybody rises. All right, please be seated. Okay. All right, where are we at? Oh. We're back. Yes. Judge Kaplan says, Miss Kaplan, proceed. And so he's going to be calling her Roberta Kaplan. Yeah, they both have the same last name. I know. Carroll's lawyer, Roberta, picks back up with direct examination of Dr. Leibowitz. Dr. Leibowitz is this woman here, clinical psychologist. And Dr. testimony starts as follows. Dr. Leibowitz, have you been following the trial testimony here? She says, yes, some of it. I was here yesterday. Says, understanding that every person is different, all these different people we're hearing from, are broad categories of ways in which, and the judge interjects. He says, you could take that a little slower, Roberta, slow down. He says, of course, Your Honor. Sorry about that. Doctor, what happens to a person's brain amid trauma? And she says, well, gosh, Miss Carroll, this is her expert witness who's going to be explaining the harm, the damages to Miss Carroll. Well, actually, Miss Carroll described this well. Not feeling like herself, being flooded with adrenaline and hormones. The front of the brain allows us to plan. The rest of the brain we share. We can no longer think. We become automatic. So what you're saying, doctor, is that trauma can make a person illogical. Is that right? Yes. For example, in a crisis in Finland, a woman ran after her hat, not her daughter. Huh. Or not screaming while being attacked in a public library. That's all normal. Is that because a part of your brain lags behind when you're in a situation like this? She says, yes, it does. Says sometimes memories are not stored correctly. For example, they can only be stored as a smell, not as a story. And sometimes they're what we call flashbacks. Did you observe these types of symptoms in Miss Carroll? Yes, I did. When I asked some questions, she squirmed, and that's how I can tell. When I said things like Mr. Trump's fingers, she's squirming around. That's how I know. Says Miss Carroll was re-experiencing Mr. Trump's fingers in her, or what she alleges to be Mr. Trump's fingers. Says, what are intrusive memories, doctor? Moving on. She says, these are like flags that are planted in your brain where traumatic memories lie. She says, think of a veteran with a panic attack. They're triggered by the smell of a Vietnamese restaurant. I can make him aware of that just by putting food in front of his face. And Miss Leibowitz, Dr. Leibowitz, Miss Carroll thought she had died, but she was still alive. Can you understand that? Explain that. She says, this is really common among survivors of rape. What does the phrase self-blaming mean? In assault cases, it is unbelievably common for people to feel it's their fault. One reason is that the experience of being attacked is one of losing control. So self-blaming regains that control. Thank you, doctor. Wow, great testimony. Says, I want to turn now to Miss Carroll, who's sitting here in the courtroom. How has Miss Carroll been negatively impacted? And remember, we're talking about damages here. We're talking about injuries. How has she been negatively impacted here? Well, I'm observing diminishment in her ability to feel good about herself. Lack of intimate romantic life led to a deep feeling of loss. She blamed herself and she felt she had been stupid. And how did this change when Donald Trump came forward to run for president? She says it got worse for Miss Carroll. Then she got better. This was a form of what we call exposure therapy. The brain gets to learn and you become less afraid. Ironically, Mr. Trump's run was exposure treatment, which is interesting. Hopefully the defense hits this on the way back. It sounds like Trump helped her get over it, actually, by running. Yeah. Now she gets to face this made-up delusion, in my humble opinion, and Trump is helping her work through it in public. She should be paying him. Is Miss Carroll resilient, doctor? Yes, she is amazing. Why do you say that? She had a loving family, rough and tumble play, but after the incident with Mr. Trump, she shut down in the presence of any eligible man, like a storefront gate. She got in an elevator and an attractive man got on. E. Jean looked at the ground. Oh my gosh, that is traumatic, isn't it? Wow. She looked at the ground when an attractive man got on the elevator. Hopefully she can recover. How does Miss Carroll's avoidance behavior with eligible men compare to her past? She says, well, her pattern was partnership. Then she avoided dating. She was social, but now she's not. And what about her pattern about going back to Bergdorf's? I mean, she went back to the store. Oh, well, she didn't blame the store for the attack, so she went back to the store. And what about her liking The Apprentice? She said she was a big fan of that. If the guy who's the star of the show attacked her, how does that play into this traumatic fictional story of yours? Oh, well, she liked the show. And to stop watching it would have revealed something and made her stand out. Yeah, would have made her stand out. All of her friends would have been like, wait a minute, E. Jean, you're not watching The Apprentice? Why? Is that because Trump attacked you or something? This is diluted. Says, what about the camp counselor? Could the camp counselor who attacked her, could he be the cause of her relation? We're asking about causation now. We're going into, okay, well, if she was harmed by this attack, alleged, what about all of the other attacks in her history? Did those contribute to the harm? Maybe those were the primary cause of the harm. Maybe Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with it at all. The camp counselor, did this cause her intimacy problem? No, she says, no, that was fine. Only Trump's was bad. She continued happy interaction after that attack. Well, what about Les Moonves, the other guy who attacked her allegedly, that she didn't sue? Same. He attacked her. She was fine after that. No problem. All the damage came from Trump. Okay, same. What about John Johnson, her ex-husband, who she called racist names, and so there was a violent encounter? What about him after that attack? Is that what damaged E. Jean? No. It wasn't him. There was a lot of respect there. And what about violence? She said she's suffered other violence in all of these interviews and things. Could that be the cause? He attacked her. She says, no, there was still intimate relations after the marriage. Okay, wow, that's amazing. You've got an answer for everything. So it sounds like it's all Trump's fault. How can we make sense of the impact of Mr. Trump's assault, but not everybody else's? Oh, we can glean from that because she blamed herself. That's how we know it mattered. It was the other people's fault, but on this one, she blamed herself. The lawyer says, okay, no further questions. Great job. They take a morning break and we flash forward through it. They're back. Roberta says, Your Honor, it's about time. This is the lawyer for E. Jean, says, Your Honor, we need to know about the defense case. Who are they calling and how's this going to proceed? Are they presenting evidence or not? Takapina says, I'll be making a call at lunchtime. He says, we prefer to know at the beginning of the lunch break. The lawyer says that. So we're back from the morning break, and now we get Trump's defense lawyer, Mr. Siegel, who is going to be leading the cross-examination. And I do believe we have a photo of this guy. Chad Siegel, Trump's defense lawyer, works alongside with Joe Tacopina. And so Siegel's going to be leading this exam. Here's how it goes. All right, doctor. You're here today as a paid expert, yeah? You're getting paid $600 an hour to be here. Is that true? Yes. And on direct, you testified about the supposed ways Miss Carroll has been negatively impacted. It's not an opinion. It's a compound question. The judge objects. All right. So once again, the judge is already objecting for the plaintiff, just so we're clear about this. We don't see in this record any evidence that Miss Carroll's lawyer objected, but the judge did. It is a compound question. The judge objected for them. He says, okay, judge, I guess I'll re-ask that one then. Sheesh. He says, all right, Miss Carroll, doctor, you are simply assuming it happened, right? She says, I focus on the consequences. But you're assuming the attack occurred, right? I have no opinion on that. Okay, so to be clear, you have no independent knowledge whether this attack took place or not. Is that true? Right. So if she made it all up, it would be a problem for your theory, right? Yeah. And you're familiar with this concept called malingering, aren't you? Meaning lying. She says, yeah, I'm familiar. It says, Miss Carroll, doctor, you would agree with me that she has a vested interest in the outcome of this case. It's good for her if she wins, right? I'm not sure what you mean about this. Doctor's very smart, has no idea what vested interest in the outcome of this case means. I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean? Okay, so she may have presented her symptom to benefit her case. Is that possible? No, I don't think so. She is adverse to being symptomatic. So you took Miss Carroll's word for it. Objection, judge sustains it. Aren't there objective psychological tests that you could give to her to measure whether this happened? She says some are not accurate, though. Okay, so you didn't use any tests to measure this? Well, the so-called objective test does not address flashbacks. Okay, so you didn't do any tests, thanks. Now, in her book, Doctor, she says, I rarely thought of this in her book. You remember hearing that? Yeah. This is inconsistent with what she told you, right? She says, no, it's not at all. Her book says, I didn't think about this at all. But apparently somewhere there is evidence that she said she thought about it a lot. She told you she thought about it rarely or a lot, right? No. He says, okay, I direct your attention to line 26. Going to go back to her deposition. Carroll's lawyer chimes in, says the quote must go further than that. So they pull up the quote. The judge chimes in again. He says, Mr. Siegel, you're going to have to get the thing together. This has been going on for 7 days here. And so he's like fumbling around trying to get the record. And the judge is scolding him again. He pulls it up. He says, Dr. Leibowitz, do you see that? And the judge cuts him off again. This is crazy. The judge says, just read it. We all know she can read it. I don't know what you're doing. Just get on with it here. And he's like, holy moly, I'm trying to pull up her deposition so I can impeach her with her statement. She said that E. Jean Carroll told her that I rarely thought of this because it was consistent with her book. In Carroll's book, she said, I rarely thought of this. So he says, okay, so obviously she didn't tell you, doctor, that she rarely thought of this, right? She's there to get treatment from you or something. And she says, no, she told me the same thing. And he says, well, that's not what you said in your deposition. You said in your deposition something else on line 26. The judge cuts him off. He's looking through it. It's here. Just get on with it. Just read it. He's going to show it to her. We all know she can read. I don't know what you're doing, man. Just get on with it. In front of the jury. They get to watch this happen. says, okay, holy moly. Is it your position, doctor, that these two statements, I rarely thought of it, are consistent? She says, yes, it's all consistent. But what do you mean by, what you mean by that is that people say different things in different settings? Is that right? You're saying that inconsistency is okay because she's trying to protect herself? She says, yeah, she doesn't want to seem hurt. So I want to show you now, doctor, Miss Carroll's October 14th deposition. In it, she said, I would have said I rarely think of it. It's here. You'd agree that the deposition is not the same thing as a courtroom? Objection sustained. So he drops it and moves on. Doctor, are you aware that Miss Carroll described herself as a big fan of The Apprentice? Did you hear that? She said she appreciated the artistry of the show, but she told you she didn't watch the show a lot. Objection, asked and answered. Judge probably sustained it. Doctor, there is no diagnosis to support Miss Carroll's allegation in this case, is there? Carroll's lawyer wants a sidebar. The judge allows it. And the judge probably shut him up. Says, you can't ask about that. They come back. He asks another question. Doctor, are you aware Miss Carroll said on a podcast that it may not have been her Donald Trump allegation that caused her romantic shutdown? She said, well, I think she said in the podcast that one creates one's own luck. He says, Dr. Leibowitz, do you recall? And the judge says, hey, this is not a memory quiz. Wow. He says, okay, judge. Doctor, then, I direct your attention to lines 3 through 10. And the judge comes in again. He says, tempus fugit from the bench. He says, folks, tempus fugit. I apologize for the Latin. It means time flies. I don't know what he's doing in court. He says, used to draw attention to the rapid passage of time.
Tempus fugit.
Tempus fugit.
Tempus fugit.
Tempus fugit. That's our
Tempus fugit.
Latin lesson of the day. So he is now interjecting and cutting off the defense. Not a memory quiz. I direct your attention to lines 3 through 10. Tempus fugit. Right in front of the jury. The defense is like, what is happening right now? Doctor, when you were deposed in March, you could not provide any examples of reactions that would be inconsistent with being attacked, right? She says, well, there's a lot of negatives in that question. Says, can we get a line number to Carroll's lawyer? He says, line 2. Doctor, you have no independent knowledge if this attack occurred, correct? I do not. Nothing further. Now we have a redirect. No redirect on this. No additional questions. They break for lunch and they come back. We fast forward right through it. And we're back. Carroll's lawyer says, Your Honor, here's the plan for the afternoon. We've got E. Jean Carroll's coming up, and then we're going to have Natasha Stoynoff. Tomorrow, we're going to have Carroll Martin. Tacopina is saying, Your Honor, here's our schedule. For our proposed witness, there have been health issues. They propose putting in the Billy Bush tape or the he's going to call it the Hollywood Access tape, probably. He says, we all know what you're talking about. He says, they shouldn't play it twice. He says, but you don't contest that it is authentic, do you? You're not challenging the authenticity of that tape, do you? He says, I only consider serious objections. So the jury is now entering. And we do get a redirect. So Miss Leibowitz, Dr. Leibowitz, is back on the witness stand. And they're going to rehabilitate her to bring her back up in the eyes of the jury. Carroll's lawyer says, all right, doctor, I want to return back to Miss Carroll's response to this whole thing. Did she do anything else Well, she got a gun and she learned to shoot. She was afraid. She had ongoing fear. Now, the defense team asked you, doctor, about psychological instruments. Can you tell me about those? She says, yeah, there are tests, like the one where they ask, are you sleeping? Are you drinking? Yes or no questions. There are other types of tests. I'm not sure why they are called objective. You can still present yourself the way you want to. In a long conversation, it's harder to do that. Doctor, have you dealt with people who've exaggerated before? Says, yes, I used to come up in the Veterans Administration. People would come to get PTSD benefits. Others were very hyperbolic. And do you have any follow-up questions about that? She says, no, I don't, thank you. Does Miss Carroll exaggerate or minimize at all? She says, well, Miss Carroll understands adversity. Whatever that means. Mr. Siegel asked you about malingering. Do you have an opinion if Miss Carroll is malingering, as they say? There's a long sidebar. The jury is sent out of the courtroom so they can read back the question. The judge says, hey, Mr. Siegel, the opinion that you're trying to exclude here yourself, you elicited this morning. The answer you don't want to hear, you already elicited. Isn't that true? And if not, why not? He says, Judge, I only asked why they may have malingered. He says, I'll try to suppress my inherent bent toward irony. The issue here is not what you were talking about. What you were trying to exclude is already in. He says, I didn't open the door. He says, we're not talking about that. The door is closed. And the horse is out of the barn. Tacopina says, I think you're right, Your Honor. Even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. And so they're throwing it back at the judge. Judge says, you win, Mr. Siegel. Tacopina says, doesn't feel like a win to me, Your Honor. They say, let's get the jury back in here. Jury re-enters. Recross. Trump's defense gets back up and they say, okay, doctor, now I want to ask you one more time. You have no direct knowledge of if the attack happened or not. Do you? I do not. No more questions. Plaintiff comes back up and says, all right, we now call, Your Honor, Cande Carroll, E. Jean Carroll's sister. And she is the second witness on day 6. You see this is a photograph of her. Not much background on her by way of bio. She is a short witness. Let's see what happens here. She says, E. Jean Carroll's sister, Cande's here. She says, oh, hi, Cande. Thanks for being here today. Says, can you tell me where did you grow up? She says, yeah, I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. My mother was Betty McKinney. What did your mother do? Well, she was a homemaker. Our father ran a store. And how would you describe your family environment when it came to sharing negative feelings? Oh, we were very private. And we always in our household always projected a good, positive attitude. My dad would always tell me, smile. My mother was behind it all the way. If you got attacked or injured in our household, nobody ever told you. Especially if you got attacked in a dressing room by Trump. You don't talk about that type of stuff in this household. Says, when Jean graduated, we went to Madison, Wisconsin. We were no longer sharing a room back then, and so we became friends as sisters. Later, we worked together on the Hunter S. Thompson biography. We created a website, and I curated her advice columns. That's it? That's it. Any cross-examination from Trump's defense? Trump's lawyer, Brandt, gets up. He says, yeah, I just have a couple questions for you, sis. Says, for how many years did you share a bedroom with E. Jean? It's about 14 years or so. And then you stayed in touch? Yeah. And in the 90s, you said you were in daily contact? Yeah. And the first you heard about any assault by Donald Trump was by email? Is that right? She said, yes, it was a link. No further questions. So you have daily phone calls with your sister. You lived in a room together for 14 years. You said you talked to her every day in the 1990s when this assault allegedly occurred. And she sent you an email with a link after she got attacked? What? Okay. No further questions. Nice talking to you. All right, let's take our break, says the judge. And we're back. Next witness is up. It's Natasha Stoynoff. And Natasha Stoynoff, we're going to get into some interesting lines of questioning on this one. And I thought I had a clip or two that I thought I added to the mind map that I did not. So let's see if yes.
Why didn't?
All right, so I do have this one. Was able to find that quickly. So I want to get these couple clips queued up because we are going to get into them.
Why didn't?
All right, so let's see who this lady is. Natasha Stoynoff, a journalist, is the next witness in the Trump trial, and Inner City Press has us here. He is reporting at Inner City Press on Twitter. Plaintiff calls Natasha. Hi, Natasha. Thanks for being here. Great to be here. Where were you working in 1992, Natasha? In Toronto. I write for the Toronto Sun. How about in 1997? Back then I moved to New York. I was on contract with People magazine. And what did you work on when you were at People magazine, Natasha? Mostly entertainment. Were you ever on a beat involving Donald Trump? Did you cover him? Yeah, I was on a beat covering Trump starting in 2003 or 2004. The Apprentice years. I covered his wedding to Melania at Mar-a-Lago. Says, I did a story on Ivanka's wedding. I can't remember to whom. Did you cover his first year anniversary and the birth of Barron? She says, yes, he was married to Melania. Her voice cracks. Do you need a moment? No, I'm okay. Natasha, I want to show you Plaintiff Exhibit 17. What do you see here? It's a group photo at Mar-a-Lago. That's me right there. That's Donald Trump. That's Melania. And how did you do your interviews? Around the photo shoots. Then we try to get them together from some banter. Was there a break in between your interviews? She says, yeah. What happened at this interview? Said Melania had just finished a photo shoot by the pool. She went up to change. Donald said, hey, come and see this great room with a painting. He led the way, and I followed him down the hall. And so what happened next? Stoynoff is bawling her eyes out now in the courtroom, sobbing. I'm thinking, a really nice room. Then the door shuts behind me. He pushes me against the wall and starts kissing me. I tried to push him away. Had anything been said, Natasha? No, not that I recall. What happened next? Then the butler came in and Mr. Trump stopped. I gave him a get me out of here look, and we went back. Trump said, you know, we're going to have an affair. Don't forget what Marla said. Best sex I ever had. Says, we'll go to Peter Luger's and have an affair. She's telling the jury this. Plaintiff's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, drops this one. At some point, did Marla return? Oh, sorry. Did Melania return? Give me a break, Roberta. That was intentional. Did Marla return? Give me a break. She says, yes, Melania did return. And so I continued the interview. It was not easy. I had my questions with me. I had to go back with my work down. I was on autopilot. So she stayed and did the interview with Trump. Natasha, do you vote? Says, yeah, I voted 3 times. Twice for President Obama. I don't remember the third. Did you vote for Hillary Clinton? She says, no. Have you voted for conservative candidates in Canada? She says, yes. Natasha, were you happy or were you sad when Mr. Trump was voted out? I was very happy. I was happy. Has Miss Carroll interviewed you? She says, yeah, in the summer of 2020. What was that about? About the incident and about my life. Did that interview change your recollection of any of this? No. She says, I saw that Anderson Cooper asked him if he had kissed any woman without consent, and he said no. And so I thought voters should know. Counsel says, Your Honor, may I approach? Yes. It says, do you recognize this? She says, yes, I do. It's the Access Hollywood clip. Your Honor, this is Plaintiff's 25T. It's a transcript. We offer it as an exhibit. Tacopina says, well, already preserving our previous objections. Judge says, any authenticity problem? No authenticity. Let it in. Says, I have copies of the transcript to hand out. Judge Kaplan says, go ahead. Now they play it. Play Plaintiff's 25. And here's the clip. I moved on her heavily like a bee. Now she's got the phony T. My man, says another person. This is the tape, we've all heard the tape. He says, I'm just kissing them. When you're a star, you can do anything, grab them by the purses. Somebody else says, come on, shorty. Always when you don't fall, right? That's the infamous tape. Carroll's counsel says, did you see this when it aired? She says, yes, I did. I was sick to my stomach and a little bit of relief. I thought, oh, he does this to a lot of women. The horrifying part is, still sobbing, I was worried because I didn't say anything at the time that others were hurt. Says, is this the debate? The Anderson Cooper debate? We don't have to play it again. They put it up on the screen. How do you feel, Natasha? Says, People magazine asked if I wanted to write about it. They knew. I said, let's see how he answers in the debate. And he lied. And I thought, you liar. Tacopina jumps up for cross-examination. Says, Miss Stoynoff, now you have no legal claim against Donald Trump. Is that true? No further questions. Roberta says, now we're going to play portions of Mr. Trump's deposition. In the deposition, question to Trump is, Mr. Trump, in the course of your married life and your dating life, did you have occasion to buy gifts? He says, no, not much. For your wives or for the women you're dating? He says, probably. In your first marriage, you saw women outside of the marriage? He says, I don't know. Did you go to Bergdorf Goodman? He says, rarely, almost never. When you went there, what did you shop for? I don't know. Have you read Miss Carroll's book, Mr. Trump? Never saw it. You responded to the excerpt in New York Magazine. You had a tweet about it. Here's your tweet. You said, I never met her. You said the book should be in the fiction section. Is that right? Do you recall the interview with The Hill? He says, yeah, I think I did that in the Oval Office. You said, she's not my type. Remember that? He said, yes. You're talking about a major store. It's just made up. Judge says, okay, we're going to break for the day. Counsel, you can stay. And the clip that I was going to play from Miss Kaplan, from Miss Stoynoff, is this one. This is a clip of her speaking out.
Didn't you come forward at the time?
There were so many reasons not to come forward. First of all, I spoke to a mentor friend of mine that night.
The night of the incident?
Yes. And he had cautioned me against it. And we both worried that there would be retaliation, that it could hurt my career, I could lose my job. I could be, sued. All the things that are, happening now is what I worried about then. I'm older and wiser now and stronger.
And your story's a lot weaker 20 years later. Would have been a lot more credible had you come out and said it back then. Not when Donald Trump is running for office and it feels partisan and political.
I can take it now, but back then I was afraid. I understand I've been mocked for saying I was afraid, but the fear was very real.
Why did you decide to tell the story on October 12th?
When I saw him at the debate, And Anderson Cooper asked him, have you ever kissed a woman without consent? And he said, no. I just think all those feelings rushed back to me, especially anger. And it pressed a button, and I didn't want, I felt that it was my responsibility to write something at that point.
Because the host of The Apprentice had not been caught on tape. The candidate for president of the United States had been caught on tape saying those things.
Yes.
Why did you decide to sit down today?
I wanted to talk to the women of this country and of this world. And one issue that has been talked about all week is the issue of women speaking out. I wrote that story, but I wasn't brave enough yet to be on camera. And I wanted to show all the women who wrote to me that I could be brave enough to do it, because I feel like if I am brave enough to do this here, maybe they will be brave enough too.
Yeah, pretty amazing that you get a lot of bravery when the man is more powerful now, right? He's actually was the president. And I think there's just another way to interpret that there's a lot more benefit now to bringing these claims. Now, another part of this interview, which we will see what Trump said about this, she also responded to Trump's comments about her. This is a fun clip.
Donald Trump said, quote, "Look at her," implying that he doesn't find you attractive. What do you say to that?
I don't take that insulting in a personal way, but I do take that as an insult to other women, to all women, but especially to women who have been severely sexually assaulted. I think that he's saying there that only pretty women get assaulted. Is that what he's saying? It's hard sometimes to decipher what he's saying, but that's...
No, he's saying he didn't assault you.
That's how I took it, and I think that I was using the word dignity before, but I think no man of dignity would speak that way.
Right. So that is her response. This was Trump's clip, and let me see if I can play this real quickly here.
And she said I made inappropriate advances. And by the way, the area was a public area, people all over the place. Take a look. You take a look. Look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Look at her words, he said. Look at her words. Look at her words. He's not commenting about her appearance. He's commenting about her words. That's all.
And she said I made inappropriate advances. And by the way, the area was a public area, people all over the place. Take a look. You take a look. Look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. I don't think so.
No. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. From Donald Trump. So, all right, my friends. Now, we are not quite done yet. They were wrapping up their proceedings at trial, and they finish it. She is done for the day. She will likely be back tomorrow. Yeah, you said she's not my type. He said, yeah, we're talking about a major store. It's just made up. So the judge excuses everybody, says, we're going to break for the day here. Counsel, you stay. Jury gets up and leaves. The judge says, okay, well, looked like based upon this case, we should finish up after lunch tomorrow. What are your thoughts on the duration? Ms. Kaplan, how long do you need? She says for summation, closing argument, says, I need 2 hours for closing. I need an hour for a rebuttal. Tacopina says, we'll take 2.5 hours, give or take. He says, all right, well, I'll have the draft charge 8 a.m. Monday morning. We'll have the charge conference here at 9 a.m. Then summations, closings 10 a.m. on Monday. Shorten the lunch, get them done before, and we're done for the day. The charge will be an hour on Tuesday, and they deliberate. As we see, Trump is not presenting a defense. Mr. Tacopina, you got that? Yeah, I got it. Ms. Siegel, you were rising? He says, we object to strike Ms. Stoynoff's testimony. We object. The judge says, denied. Jury could reasonably find that there was an actual assault. I conclude that there was. And that, my friends, is it on the day for the trial. And so thank you to Inner City Press for being there, doing the live reporting. Make sure you're giving him a follow over on Twitter and subscribing to his Substack, Matthew Russell Lee, ICP, on Substack. We covered a lot of ground here today. You see we got some additional new witnesses. Natasha Stoynoff, Cande, Carroll came in, Dr. Leslie Leibowitz. And I forgot to mention this, kind of an interesting update, but there are some sealed filings that are going on. We can't see what is happening. But in this case, there were additional filings you can see here on May. Well, here, a declaration from Roberta Kaplan, this selected parties bit. This is the court docket. This means that we can't see it, right? I can't go in there and see it. Only certain people can. And there were some new filings. This one here, memorandum of law, document filed by Trump. And all of this stuff is being filed under seal. Memorandum of law in opposition to the motion. So we don't know what is exactly happening. But stuff is being filed. Trial is coming to a close. Of course, we will continue to follow. If you'd like to navigate this mind map at home, click any of these links. Click over to Matthew Russell Lee. Watch any of the videos or share it with a friend and say, hey, here's the evidence. You can do that. Go over to spotlightlawyer.com/Trump and you can just navigate this mind map around. Super easy. Best to do it on a desktop. You can open these different nodes and you can explore it on your own. Spotlightlawyer.com/Trump. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground, good Trump updates. We also hit the highlights on Congress subpoenaing the FBI. Read through both of those full documents. If you missed that, pretty explosive. The DOJ is going to respond. The FBI is going to respond. We'll see what the Biden administration says about it. They might this might hit the courts, probably going to hit the courts. We'll see where it goes. But pretty explosive. Congress demanding records from the FBI, implying that Biden was involved in a lot of criminality. Are we getting close to a verdict in the Proud Boys case? We'll see. We'll be back tomorrow. Looks like they're getting closer. They're finally looking at the verdict forms and they're on count 4, which means we're about halfway there. So we'll see if there's anything that comes out tomorrow. Of course, we appreciate you joining us here today. Thank you for subscribing and following along as we cover all of these stories and more. I appreciate you inviting a friend over to join us or sending them a short clip or sending them another video. And we'll look forward to seeing you here tomorrow because we're going to do it all again. But now, let's hear from you. Let's see what you have to say. I saw some very generous super chats come in. Thank you for those. And some nice new members who came into the house. We've got our friends over on Rumble. We're going to say hello to Twitter, and then we're going to go over to our members only after party here in a short minute. So if you are a member on YouTube, grab the Telegram link so you can join us for that. All right. Hey, we had some nice chats come in on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. A super sticker came in from Stephen Mosher saying, what is that one? Says something, fist bump, I think. Fist bump to Stephen Mosher. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you. Says Comer is subpoenaing an FBI form called an FD 1023. That was created in June 2020. Oh, very interesting. Thank you for that detail. Thank you for that detail. Says an FD 1023 simply documents an interview with the source and does not in itself indicate any suspicions of wrongdoing. Thank you for the details on that, Stephen. Yeah, that's good. We're going to have to file that one away in the memory bank. I kind of want to see what one looks like now. I'm sure it's all digital, but I still want to see it. I want to get it in PDF form so we can mark it up. We have David Nelson says, would you please cover Critic Court Resent stream from Film Threat? On YouTube, they need some of your assistance. I will take a look at it, David. I don't know if that's in our category of coverage. We talk about police, prosecutors, politicians, and stuff like that. But if that, I'll take a look. I don't know. I've not heard about this story. So I just copy and pasted it and I'll take a look. But thank you for the chat regardless, David. I appreciate that. We had another one come in from Patrick. And Patrick invited some members in the house. Thank you to Patrick. I saw that, Patrick. Thank you very much. And says, I got $5 that it's related to the Ukraine quid pro quo, talking about the FBI document, right? Saying that maybe it's Hunter Burisma related from Patrick. Good call. Says, as someone who has been blown up by an IED in Afghanistan. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Patrick. I appreciate you being here, my man, and thank you for your service to this country. Says, I could personally attest that it's not the lack of remembering. It's the blackout that causes you not to remember till later. It's called short-term memory loss. From Patrick. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry you're going through that, Patrick. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for the chat. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for being here, Patrick. We had this one from C. Fetzer. Says, isn't the 1023 the document that was falsified against Michael Flynn? I thought that was an interview. I thought that was an FBI 302 for Flynn. Yeah, I thought it was a 302. Wasn't Flynn? Flynn had the conversation with Viselyek. So I thought it was a 302. It was summarized. Yeah, I think it was a 302. John McGarvey's confirming that 302 for us. Yeah, but similar. Like, it's hard to keep track of all the numbers, but I think it was a 302. Good to see you, C. Fetzer. Hey, Fred Pedamontes here. Says, as a serious law aficionado, I've gone to and watched 100+ trials. Kaplan's behavior is so disturbing. I've never seen a judge inject himself like this. That's amazing. So, Fred, you just, for real? You've just gone and sat in 100+ trials? That's amazing. Yeah, and this is pretty amazing behavior, and I don't know how to explain it other than, like, is this like a Joe Tacopina, Judge Kaplan thing? Like, do they have something going on that we don't know about? Like, are they bros? Are they dunking on each other like this, and they're just like old college buddies or something? Is this a weird movie? I don't know. Bird Shadow says, a drifting raven up on high, whence my good name was born. I don't even know what. Is this Shakespeare? Is Shakespeare in the house? Says, doth somber croak that we below might not forget but mourn, and follows with an awful screech that God himself remissed to curse our friends in squalid pens since J6. I'm going to have to read that again. That's pretty advanced writing for me. It's like poetry about January 6th. I'm not even really sure what it means. I'm going to have to analyze that. Bird Shadow, that is a sophisticated super chat, my friend. Thank you very much. Did that take, that probably took some time. You know what I bet? If I took that out and, like, you know, entered and put it like in a poetry format, it would read like a poem, no? Anyway, thank you, Bird Shadow, for that. A bad poet, speaking of poetry, says, so has anyone investigated those judges, you know, their campaign contributions, land and sudden assets, you know, all the basics? From a bad poet. We were talking about the judges this morning. In fact, Lindsey Graham had a good hearing yesterday on May 2nd in the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he was blasting the Democrats. He says, you know, your judges, they fly all over the place too. So stop making this about just one side. If you really have a problem, call out both sides. And it was an interesting interview. And I think Ted Cruz, we were talking about this morning on our members only stream on Locals, about Ted Cruz, who was also there, and calling them out for this nonsense. So that was those were from our friends over on YouTube. Amazing. Thank you, everybody on YouTube. And we had one from Jentifer over on Rumble. Thank you, Jentifer. She says, the women in this trial are getting crazier and crazier and even more desperate. I hope at least one juror doesn't have TDS and sees through the BS. We'll see about that, Jentifer. It does feel like, what are we doing now? Everybody just comes in and just, yeah, you know, I forgot that one time. Yeah, I was on an airplane too that one time in 1976. I wasn't born yet, but I was there and Trump was there. And, you know, something weird happened to me and, you know, I'll probably sue him now. Maybe they'll give me a slot on MSNBC. Anderson Cooper will have me on. Hey, Judy Caspier Collins is here. Jacob's in the house. We got Nick Danger. We got La Aztecas in the house. We've got indoctrination, and we've got the dog digger. We have the Janek 909s in the house. Good to see everybody over on Rumble. Red Pilled Woman, Donut Mind Me, Cars, Gentifer. Yeah, it says Trump's a germ freak. He's not going to be jumping on, certain people out there. And those, my friends, are from Rumble. Let's say hello to our friends on Twitter before we go over to our after party and our members only debrief on the day. How many people are here on the stream? 4 people. Holy moly. That's almost 5. The words of the day are holy and moly. Have I been saying that a lot? Gosh darn it, says Paul. I literally just said it. Thank you, Paul. I don't know about that. Hey, Danny McWilliams says, let me get this straight. You get a judge like this, spend years in jail, pay someone for years, and then maybe another judge will reverse it. I'm sorry, that's just not the law that I live by. Danny McWilliams is telling us, sorry, some of us are on a fixed income. Sorry, not funding your podcast. All right, that's fine. Okay, you don't have to. You don't have to. It's not mandatory. You can still be here. In fact, I'm grateful that you are here, Danny McWilliams. And some other comments on there. Another one came in from James, says, how can it be proven that the judge is clearly biased? If proven beyond a reasonable doubt, what are the legal ramifications against the judge? Would he lose his license? The judge could get in trouble with there are judicial councils that will manage judges just like they would manage attorneys. But when you're a federal judge and you've got lifetime appointment, it's a really difficult thing to do anything about that. So the judge wouldn't be put through a trial like, beyond a reasonable doubt. He wouldn't be charged with a crime for this. And he has a lot of leeway. He can say, I'm not biased. He can really come up with a good argument for basically every one of his rulings and explain it away and justify it. So I don't think that there's much, honestly, that you can do. I think that there will be some things that happen to our justice system one way or another if this stuff continues on, because, well, there will be consequences to actions like this. I think it delegitimizes the whole system. But those, my friends, came over from Rumble and from Twitter. We are going over to locals here in a short minute and on Telegram for our members. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to have you join us. The address is watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'll be heading there in a quick minute. Come and join us. If you're on YouTube and you became a member, don't forget to grab the Telegram link, which is in the community section on YouTube. Grab the Telegram link because we're not going to be done yet. Also, don't forget to get your Field of Greens over at fieldofgreens.com. They've got products to get lean. They've got products to get flexible. They've got products to help you sleep. And they've got, of course, your real organic superfood, Field of Greens, daily servings of fruit and vegetables to help you feel and be nutrified. The vegetables want to be eaten. If you want to use a mind map like this software, I use it for all sorts of different things, not only the show. Check it out, spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. You can create a free account and just create all over the place. It's a lot of fun. I want to thank the mods who mod down the fort for us and keep the show nice and orderly. Big shout outs to our friends Vienticus Prime, K-Bean, Just Cause, we've got Playin Hooky, we've got Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Geomancy, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek 909, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and Sleepy Dog Lee, along with our friend Geegum Geegum, our meme smith over on Locals. And so that, my friends, is it for the day. We are going to leave it right there. We're going to come back tomorrow and do it all again. We're going to see what's up with Proud Boys, what's happening with Trump. We'll see if Joe Biden is discovered to have been committing other crimes, probably. But of course, we hope that you join us here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a beautiful evening, a beautiful sleep, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.